Imagine walking into a sleek boutique on Fifth Avenue in New York City. You have $25,000 in crisp bills in your pocket, real money you worked hard for, maybe from years of long hours, smart investments, or a side hustle that finally paid off. You point to a beautiful leather bag behind the glass, the kind that looks like it could carry a story as easily as it carries your things. In a straightforward world, having the cash would be enough. You would pay, thank the associate, and walk out with the bag. Simple. But luxury retail does not always operate like a normal store. The sales associate meets your eyes with a warm, polished smile. They take a measured look, not necessarily in judgment, but in the careful way people do when they are trying to understand where someone fits. Then, gently, they steer the conversation elsewhere. In most stores, that would feel insulting. You would probably put your wallet away and leave annoyed. But in luxury, something more subtle can happen. Instead of anger, a quieter feeling appears. Doubt, curiosity, maybe even a desire to prove that you belong there after all. So you keep talking, you ask questions, you look at something else. Before long, you leave having spent a few $1,000s on an accessory, a bracelet, a scarf, or a decorative piece you never planned to buy. That moment matters because it reveals something deeply human. Our sense of value is often entangled with recognition. That is where the Veblen Effect becomes more than an economics term. It becomes a mirror. And if we are honest, what it reflects is not just vanity. It reflects longing, insecurity, ambition, and the universal desire to feel chosen. Most of us learned the basic rule of demand in school. When the price of something rises, demand usually falls. If a Honda Civic suddenly cost $100,000, most people would walk away. We like value. We compare prices. We wait for discounts. We are practical more often than we admit. But luxury complicates that rule. Thorstein Veblen observed that for certain goods, a higher price can actually make the item more desirable because the price itself becomes part of the product's meaning. In other words, the object is no longer just useful. It becomes social language. It signals scarcity, access, taste, and, in some cases, rank. That is why a luxury bag is never only a bag. A person is not just buying leather, stitching, or hardware. They are also buying a story about themselves. They are buying the feeling that they have reached a level where ownership means something beyond function. And that, in my view, is where luxury becomes psychologically powerful. The item does not merely solve a practical problem. It solves an emotional one. It tells the buyer, you are not outside anymore. A simple way to picture this is with the demand curve. Under normal conditions, demand slopes downward as price rises. But with Veblen goods, desirability can rise with price because the price helps create the prestige. The high number does not scare the right buyer away. It reassures them that the item still has symbolic power. This is why brands at the very top do not simply sell products. They build distance. They create ritual. They surround the purchase with waiting, uncertainty, and social filtering. Whether in fashion, watches, jewelry, or private clubs, the pattern is often similar. Access itself becomes part of the appeal. That brings us to Hermes, which is probably the clearest example in public conversation. People often talk about the Hermes relationship, meaning the long-term relationship some clients build with a sales associate and the broader brand ecosystem. In practice, many customers believe that buying sought-after items can involve more than simply asking for one directly. The point here is not that every store works the same way or that every client has the same experience. The point is that scarcity and relationship building become part of the mythology of the purchase. That mythology matters. When buying becomes a journey instead of a transaction, the final object feels earned. And once something feels earned, people value it more. Effort changes perception. Waiting changes meaning. Even ambiguity can increase attachment because the mind starts treating the object like an achievement instead of a possession. This is one of the most important lessons in luxury psychology. People do not only want expensive things, they want meaningful acquisition stories. And, if I can add my own observation here, that is why luxury marketing works best when it lets the customer participate in the narrative. The customer is not only buying the object, they are auditioning for an identity. The more effort they invest, the more that identity feels real. That same logic also explains a strange reversal of power. A person who runs a company, manages teams, or makes million-dollar decisions may still feel a rush of anticipation waiting for a text from a boutique. That is not because they suddenly became irrational. It is because challenge creates emotional energy. When every ordinary purchase is easy, difficulty itself starts to feel valuable. So, when the call finally comes, we have something that may interest you. The emotional payoff is larger than the object alone could justify. The buyer is not only receiving a bag, they are receiving confirmation. Confirmation that they were remembered, admitted, and rewarded. In real life, status signaling tends to show up in layers. The first layer is what many people call loud luxury. This is the visible, unmistakable version. Obvious logos, statement pieces, items designed to be recognized instantly. It is easy to mock, but I think that misses the human side of it. For some people, loud luxury is not about bad taste. It is about relief. It is the desire to make success visible after years of being unseen. The second layer is quiet luxury, sometimes called stealth wealth. Here, the logos shrink or disappear. The fabric gets better. The cut gets cleaner. The signal becomes legible only to people with a trained eye. This is less about announcing wealth to everyone and more about communicating belonging to a narrower circle. Then there is a third layer, the symbolic pinnacle. At this level, the point is not merely price or branding. It is the combination of rarity, story, access, and cultural recognition. A highly coveted Hermes bag is powerful in this way, not only because it is expensive, but because it implies patience, access, and successful navigation of an exclusive system. And here is my second observation. The higher you go, the less the signal is about the object itself, and the more it becomes about social proof hidden inside the object. The material item remains visible, but the true message is invisible. It says, I know how this world works, and this world knows me back. That is why status is rarely just about money. It is about being legible to the tribe you care about. Humans are social creatures. We watch one another. We borrow cues. We compare trajectories. We want some evidence that our effort is paying off and that our place in the world is secure. Once you see that clearly, luxury no longer looks like a niche topic for the ultra-rich. It becomes a concentrated version of a pattern that appears everywhere. Take the $20 smoothie from an upscale health store. Most people know it is not 20 times better than what they could make at home. But buying it can still feel good because it signals discipline, wellness, or participation in a certain urban lifestyle. Think about trendy drinkware, limited edition sneakers, annual phone upgrades, or the urge to stretch for a nicer car than you strictly need. In each case, the purchase is not only practical, it is social and emotional. It answers a silent question. How am I doing compared with the people around me? And to me, this is the most useful lesson in the whole discussion. Luxury is not an exception to human behavior. It is a magnified version of ordinary human behavior. We all want reassurance. We all want progress to feel visible. We all want some sign that our sacrifices meant something. The difference is mostly one of scale, not kind, but there is also a cost. The more your self-image depends on external symbols, the more fragile it becomes. Every new status marker loses its effect over time. What once felt extraordinary becomes normal. Then the mind needs a new signal, a rarer object, a more exclusive room, a more impressive upgrade. The treadmill never announces itself as a treadmill. It arrives disguised as taste, ambition, or just one more reward. That is where the real danger lies. Not in owning nice things, but in outsourcing self-worth to things that can never finish the job. So the healthiest takeaway is not luxury is stupid, and it is not status does not matter. Both of those positions are too shallow. A more honest conclusion is this: status is part of human life, but it becomes expensive when you stop noticing how much power you have given it. Real wealth, in the deepest sense, is not the freedom to impress people. It is the freedom to need less applause. It is the ability to enjoy beautiful things without asking them to define you. It is the peace of knowing that your value does not rise and fall with access, labels, or recognition. If you can buy something beautiful and still walk away from the game unchanged, that is power. If you can admire luxury without confusing it for identity, that is maturity. And if you can build a life where your time, your relationships, your health, and your peace matter more than your symbols, That is a form of wealth no boutique can sell you. If this resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment telling me which layer of status signaling you notice most in your own community. On this channel, we talk honestly about money, identity, retail psychology, and the hidden forces shaping modern desire. Buy assets that give you freedom, not just attention, and I will see you in the next video.